Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Trade Group, and this is your market recap for Tuesday, November 8th. It is election day. Don't forget to vote. Let's go over the major themes of today. Another very dull, sleepy day in the markets. Nothing really going on. Not much to really do. No, of course, I'm joking. Again, there's a lot of volatility that's going on, different places of the market. I will get to some of those places in just a second. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Please read the whole risk disclaimer. So one of those areas being the crypto market. I found that very interesting today. We've had some decent kind of risk on moves recently, and some of the other areas, like if you look at what the US dollar is doing, right? US dollar breaking, not essentially breaking down, but breaking below the 50-day moving average, breaking below the value area for the month of November. Again, value area is using volume at price. Very interesting there. Now, however, we did take out a version point of control. So this could be a place that the US dollar kind of reverses and maybe goes back higher. I would really pay attention to this level in here, 29.42. If you're playing things to the downside, thinking that there might be more dollar weakness, logical that we come back and take out a big volume area. Let's see what happens once this we see if this bounces or if it continues to go further. But yes, that level has been taken out. All right, so that was number one. We've seen now 3 or 4 days of decreases in the US dollar. That's usually a pretty good sign for equities. The other area, which was of concern, as I mentioned yesterday, bonds. They rebounded quite nicely. This is the 30-year bond futures. You have a bullish engulfing candle for the day. This whole candle took out the previous, I believe the previous, yes, it looks like that counts. So maybe making a higher low. We'll see if this kind of continues to build off of this. For now, back inside the value area, that level is right around 119. If you also want to look at TLT, that's fine. Different maturity, not quite as bullish, but also staying right around that bottom of value. Again, not the best look there. This underperformed a little bit. Was it still up 1.1%? Again, have to see if this makes a lower high. Again, a lot of implications. Those are the two things that I really look at. Now, of course, the big mover of the day was in Bitcoin. Huge move, huge volume for the day. Take a look at the price action for the day. This actually traded all the way down to 16,835. Very interesting. I've explained this before. I mean, I'm not a crypto expert, so before I go into the subject, just make sure that you understand I'm not a crypto expert. But what happens in this market is when there is a lot of leverage, it could be, you could see some outsized moves. Why? Because when there's margin calls in this space, it's very different than equity margin calls, right? When you get a equity margin call, I believe that you have time, right, to go ahead and meet the margin call with either cash, or you can bring in other securities. You could do some things. When you have a margin call in the cryptos, there's no meeting of a margin call. They immediately liquidate to meet the margin call. That's why if there's a large number of accounts on margin, there can be some violent moves. Interesting, it's making a recovery back here in the after hours, back up to 18,630, which is still down 10% for the day. But look at the move. I mean, just really whippy moves going on. The level to watch here, let me just turn these levels back on so that you could see what I'm referring to. But that level is 18,845. That's an important level to watch. That's the bottom of value for the month, right? Very interesting. One of the things that we've talked about as well is the width of the value area for this month is so much more narrow than other value areas. When you have a very narrow value area like that, it's kind of the effect of being, some people like to use the phrase coiled. using the moving averages, when they all wrap around one another, usually a big move is coming. Notice how thin the value area is. Again, that usually means that a big move is coming. All right. And we didn't get one last month, and the value area is about the same width. Again, look at the width versus other periods. I think this is the slimmest value area I've ever seen for Bitcoin. So yes, you could really move around. You could cross through the value area very, very easily. But there you have it. Just hit mute on this. All right, so that's some factors outside of equities. All of that, and we didn't even talk about equities yet. Might as well look at the S&P chart. Positive here, above the 50-day moving average, above the value area, above the 20-day moving average, above the 5. So recaptured some short-term trends. Also a good thing above value. The bad thing is, you know, we didn't take out the lows from where we we did not take out this level in here, so it could be met with some resistance, right? We're in a pattern of making lower highs, right? Have to get out of that pattern of just that, of making lower highs, before you can really kind of get a little bit more excited about this. All right, so that's the S&P. Of course, if you're a regular viewer of my videos, you know that I've been talking about NASDAQ having relative weakness, right? Much different looking, not above value, but inside value, also decently below its 50-day moving average. Relative weakness, level to watch in NASDAQ futures is 10,918. When you get to the small caps, although they didn't have a great day today, still showing a little bit of relative strength. Again, very quiet this week. Of course, the champion right now out of the indices is the Dow. You look at some of these components, your Caterpillar, your UNH, your Boeing, your Goldman, or excuse me, JP Morgan. A lot of these areas there's only 30 stocks that are in the Dow, but there's about 7 or 8 of them. McDonald's is another one that is just ripped to the upside, very overbought. So it will be interesting to see if some of those stocks can kind of burn off. And if you don't believe me, we could look at a couple of them, but look at McDonald's, basically straight up from 230 to 278. Here's JP Morgan as well. Hasn't really gone down much at all since it reported earnings, has been on an incredible run. So the question is, some of the components have gotten pretty stretched, right? They're probably due for at least some consolidation. But if they start fading back down, you might see a move back below the 200-day moving average. But for now, really, really nice strength in this one. And now technically this is not in a downtrend anymore, even though the 200-day moving average is sloping down, but it is out of its downtrend and now above the 200-day moving averages, which is what I really define as an uptrend versus downtrend. Should it really be doing more than this? It should probably take out this previous peak that it made in August. But for now, I would say it's pretty compelling to see something like this. All right, so before we get to single name stocks, remember that the market, what do we know so far about 2022? Well, we're in a downtrend. We've seen many bear market rallies. And particularly, I've noticed when people get excited to the long side, when you start to see more setups than less setups, right? Which is normally what you want to see in an uptrend. But in a downtrend, when we start to see more participation, it has actually been a curse. So again, we'll see if that changes. But for now, I'm very hesitant going into the CPI report that we're going to see on Thursday, because we've seen, just like we saw last week, we saw a rally into FOMC, which was met with selling. So I have to think that going into Thursday could be another situation like that. I'll let the numbers prove themselves to see if they're going to be something different. But from now, that's been the pattern, right? And it's a pattern until it breaks. When we see more participation, it has generally ended in a bad thing. Also, when we rise into an event, it's been a buy the rumor, sell the news. So keep that in mind for Thursday. It's not an event, just like I talked about last week with the Fed meeting. It's not an event to have a lot of risk on right now, regardless of how many setups you're seeing, right? So that's my opinion. That's risk management. It's just too much of it's too big of an event. Now, if the CPI actually, if it does end up being something good, and inflation comes down, we'll have plenty of time to kind of counter on that. The indices are in so far, you look at the S&P, which is so deep in a downtrend that you're going to have plenty of time. But I am really worried that this number is not going to show a decrease, because again, if you look at the number for Thursday, we'll go over this more, but it's actually an elevated estimate that they're looking for, 0.6, 0.5, 7.9. So we'll see if this is an easier hurdle to actually jump, I guess duck under, rather than we don't want to see a jump over the hurdle. But again, I'm very wary, and I will be holding less positions. Also, we'll do things like, we had a put fly on in the queues for FOMC, which worked really well. We'll put on a similar trade for that too, where we're not committing a lot of capital, but we have good risk to return. We'll have good return for our risk. So I will definitely be looking at that. Let's talk about a little bit, so again, big volatility today, intraday. Here's what this looked like. All the way to the upside. NASDAQ, we took out an upside VPOC. It's funny because in the room, I had literally mentioned this. We started our midday session, and I basically said, be careful of this. I said, if you want to fade the market, right, this is a good time to do it once this version point of control was taken out, because the market just hasn't acted nicely to these things. And I said, if looking to fade, and now I didn't do it. I wish I did. But I was cognizant that that's a danger area. So again, the valuaries, the market webs, volume at price telling us exactly where that you could see a pause right now. Here's how I traded things today. Harmony, which looked like a pretty good setup. Again, I'm kind of sticking to where there's strength in this market, whether it's in earnings names or whether it's in lower volatility names, but this works pretty decently for the day. Again, strong earnings name, not an expensive name. I think the name is about a PE of 20. Consolidating here, I thought that the dip into the bottom of value right into this 87 level was pretty good. We did hit some resistance right at 60, which we talked about in the room, that was a place to possibly take another target. I didn't, because I took a target at 59.80, which was close enough to 60.10. So for now, that worked. The names that were in our weekend watch list, some really good opportunities in here. Let's start with the lithium names. This name took off pretty nicely, and if you look at this weekly chart in Albemarle, which again is a lithium name, they do some other things too, but nice looking kind of cup and shoulder. Yeah, cup and handle, not cup and shoulders. That's taking two different patterns and putting them together. You should never do that. Cup and handle. Let me try again. Second attempt. This looks like a pretty good cup and handle. Again, it's some of these patterns, they're a little bit more abstract than going to be a perfect cup and handle, but I like this little cup here, and then move higher, or handle of the cup. Right. What I decided to do, because I missed this trade, even though it was on the watch list, is I actually went into some LTHM. Also nice break out of the value area. All right, so that trade, and I think I hit one target in that trade. XLV, which I've been kind of holding, as it's, even though it's sideways, I talked about this yesterday, did manage to take a target earlier today, 133. Again, I mentioned that you could also trade this in options. It's not an expensive option. It does move quite nicely when you do get a decent move. IT took another target in this one. Right, my ultimate target in IT, Gartner, is up at 334. But again, another strong earnings name, holding their earnings, gave you a little bit of a dip opportunity into the 5-day moving average to add. That was around 315. It's up to 327. My ultimate target is 334. Again, that's where I picked this thing up, right around 315. All right. GFI, so we'll get to the gold miners too. I just wanted to make sure I covered enough of my trades. I took a shot on some CrowdStrike. That actually worked pretty decently. DXEM managed to take a target in this one. First target, we'll see if it continues to move in the right direction. For now, it's been a slow mover around this 5-day moving average. Have to really pay attention to that. So far, it's been closed. The last couple of days is closed above the 5-day moving average. My ultimate target is probably going to be 123 in this trade, as long as the price can stay above the 5-period moving average. What about gold and silver? You know, nice to see this, but I'm always speculative of gold because it's been very tricky, right? We know that gold is also in a downtrend, so it's been very difficult, but making a move. Now, remember, the last time it made a move, it took about 2 weeks and the whole thing gave it back. This looks like a little bit different, right? When you look at the moving average, last time we did not get over the 50. This time we're above the 50. So I'm open to giving gold and silver, you know, a chance to go here. I got long. I talked about silver Wheaton on Friday. I didn't go long it on Friday. I went long yesterday and got rewarded for it. Ultimately, I think if this move can continue in the precious metals, I'm looking for a move up to 38. All right. I did take 2 targets today in this trade. All right. And that's not a bad look. Also, the agriculture space, even though my timing was bad on this. And by the way, if you got your timing was wrong on a trade or 2 today, you know, it's the volatility is just crazy intraday. So this is a name I'll be watching tomorrow. This is Deere, right? Caterpillar has worked so well in terms of this, and I kind of associate those 2 names together. Deere also has a component of agriculture. Some of the agriculture stocks are looking pretty decent. CF Industries, right, is one, I believe, which closed above its value area. So I'm now long this name. As long as it stays above 107 or 107.82 specifically, but I always give it a little bit of room just in case it wants to consolidate a little bit more. But let's see if this one wants to extend a little bit and get back above the, you know, get further above the value area. So a little bit of strength in there. I talked about silver miners and so forth. As well as gold miners. SMCI is another name at this point. I try to trade. I ducked out of it when I saw the volatility in the middle of the day, but you know, we'll continue to watch this one. Has to stay really above these 2 moving averages for me. So I'll look at it again if it stays above 78.80. All right, guys, that is it. Again, you know, the major thing, or kind of the bottom line, is there's been some nice opportunities in this market. You know, to the upside is there's been more areas participating. We're still in a bullish crossover with the McClellan Summation Index. That's NYSI on your stock charts, $ NYSI. So as long as that is in a bullish crossover, I kind of stay with that trend of more names participating. But there's a lot of damage under the hood as well with some of these names like Upstart, Affirm, right? AFRM, and you know, so there continues to be trades and opportunities to the downside, even though we're in a bullish crossover, right, with the 10-day moving average with the McClellan Summation Index. The last thing I will say is what I stressed already: be careful. You know, in my opinion, right, this video is for information purposes only, but you have to be cognizant that we have a very big event on Thursday. For the most part, you know, locking in gains is a big thing in 2022 when you have them. So, you know, and preserving your buying capital for the dip and for opportunities where they come. So the major thing, you know, theme this year has been on the long side, do not get comfortable, right? You know, you cannot get complacent with this market, right? It's been a market for locking in profits and then waiting for setups to materialize again. All right, guys. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. That's just how it's been so far. That's been the pattern. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.